notification system.
You're so on top of it.
I know. Scary.
It's a plan, right? It's Plan Z, Randy, but it's a plan. It's a Plan Z, it's way
That place has been bad.
Posted right on Facebook.
Yep.
Quickest one to check.
I just saw it in your
State
notes.
law requires this body to announce at this time that a copy of the current Open Meetings Act is available at the back of the room or is accessible to the public. Simpson.
Here.
Sisson.
Here.
McDermott.
Here.
Gibbons.
Here.
Irvine.
Here.
Hines.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Aldridge.
Here. Thank you. You can all stand, please, for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 1 is the consent agenda. Approve this agenda, pay the claims as submitted, approve the minutes of February 18th, 2020 regular council meeting, and approve 2 special designated liquor licenses, one in March 21st and one in March 19th.
So move. Second.
Aldridge, Mike Sisson.
Simpson.
Yes.
Sisson.
Yes.
McDermott.
Yes.
Gibbons.
Yes.
Irvine.
Yes.
Hines.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Aldridge.
Yes.
Thank you. It is now time for public forum. If somebody wants to bring something before the council that is not on the agenda, now is the time and the place to do that. Please approach the table. Announce your name, please.
Steve Tellis. I live on 1519 6th and over in Jackaloni's addition. And we moved here about 8 years ago, a little over that. And Dwayne's Trailer Court has always been kind of a sore point. And it has gotten worse, considerably worse. On the intersection of 6th and East Street, there's what I would call a salvage yard going on. There are a number of trailers there that have no windows in them, so we know they're uninhabited, or if they are, there should be health codes taking care of that. I know these things because I was a former ordinance officer in another city, and I dealt with a lot of the stuff like this, health and junk cars, barking dogs, etc. But I was a duly sworn deputy, so I know that we can all work together probably and get something done about this. It's a poor representation of a very good town when you drive in from the east. So I'd like to see if there's anything the council can get together to do, and looking at health codes, looking at things like that. I do know that with the backing, the police with the backing of a strong city council and a city attorney, things can happen. Because I had that luxury where I came from. So, anybody got any questions? I think we all know what we're looking at, and I would invite you to come over and take a look as it is become. We had a nice, quiet little neighborhood when we started, and not so much anymore. And our taxes went up over 40%. I don't believe that's really fair when the area has declined considerably. So as of the May evaluations, we'll be lodging a protest there because of the amount of decrepit real estate that's around us. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming to the council.
All right.
We know it's there.
Huh?
Sorry to say, we know it's there.
Right. But we would appreciate, there's got to be something, maybe recruiting a developer to come in. A truck stop would be nice, something of the sort. Things like that. Other than the trailer court, please.
Thank you very much, Steve. Anybody else in a public forum?
I'd like to add to that and encourage everyone to drive by and then go home and consult your code book and see what we might be missing in that area.
Yeah.
I have something for public forum. CERT has brought up recently to both the Holdridge City Council and PCDC as well as PCCF the idea of doing a fundraiser for the Veterans Memorial. So that's something that we'll be bringing to the City Council. Sorry, I just ran up all those stairs. So that's something we'll be bringing to City Council as we kind of start making the plans for that a little bit more. But they're planning for that to be held at South Park, and then we'd work together with them to have it kind of like a ribbon cutting and renaming of South Park to Veterans Memorial Park, and just kind of have a fun festive time there. So just letting everybody know.
I presume that we're going to hear a lot more about this in the near future?
Yes. Today was our first meeting, getting everything kind of finalized, or not finalized, and bringing up some ideas and kind of what we want this event to be. So in the coming weeks, we'll all be working together to make sure that it's a really fun event and something that continues at South Park.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That sounds pretty exciting. Anybody else in the public forum? If not, I will close the public forum. Item 3, what we've been waiting for tonight. Accept the City of Holdridge annual audit from KSO CPA.
I'm Mindy Yeoman, CPA and shareholder with KSO CPAs. And we audited the financial statements of the city for the year ended September 30th, 2019. These financial statements are the responsibility of management. We work pretty closely with your finance department in getting all of that put together. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on these statements, and in our opinion, these financial statements do present fairly, which is a clean opinion. I pulled out some highlights to go over. I know you have a long report that you all read over the weekend, but the assets of the city exceeded its liabilities at September 30th by $29 million. Of this amount, $6.1 million is unrestricted, which means that it can be used to meet the ongoing needs of the city. A lot of your other assets are wrapped up in streets and buildings that you can't use readily for the bills of the city. The debt of the city decreased by $275,000 during this year. No new debt was issued. The major capital asset items during the year were for a partial payment on a new baler of $21,550. We made improvements to North Park of $350,000, ball field improvements of $610,000, and street improvements of $300,000. In the utility funds this year, the water had an operating loss of $193,000, which compared to a $220,000 loss last year. The sewer had an operating loss of $130,000. The prior year was a loss of $106,000. The electric fund had operating income of $215,000 compared to a loss last year of $59,000. The landfill had an operating loss of $155,000, which is compared to a loss of $320,000 in the prior year. As in prior years, we ask you as the council to remain involved in the finances of the city. You see things on a monthly basis, so if you could ask questions on anything throughout the year, try and stay involved with a smaller entity. We always have a lack of segregation of duties because there's limited people in your finance department, and we don't expect you to hire enough to get rid of that, but that's why we have you guys as a control. So if you look at the invoices and see anything odd, to just ask questions and kind of bring it up earlier than once a year when we come in and look at the books. Anyone have any questions on anything in the report?
Last year was a pretty wet year. A lot of yards didn't get watered. Our sewer is tied to the water consumption, and that strictly correlates to one another to a very wet season.
And that's been pretty common across the whole state.
Yeah. And we probably still need to adjust our water rates someday. Any questions for Mindy? Motion to accept the report?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Mary McDermott seconds.
Sisson.
Yes.
McDermott.
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes.
Burbine.
Yes.
Hines.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Aldridge.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Motion approved. Item 4, approve street and sidewalk use for a food truck vendor during the craft show at the City Auditorium on Saturday, April the 4th.
So it's our 8th year again. We're just asking to have the front locked like we normally do in front of the City Auditorium just for a food truck that comes in, that's open to the public and to the vendors for lunch.
And you're gonna park next to, the food truck's
Yep.
gonna be
So
parked next
they'll do
to?
like we always done. We just pull them up right up to the front sidewalk there, so there's no step down to get to the food truck. So they're right there at the curb. Everybody comes on the sidewalk, can come up to the food truck, get what they want, come back inside, or just come get lunch and go home.
Pretty much like you have.
Yep,
been doing.
same thing we've done for the past several years.
Any questions or concerns from the council?
What kind of numbers do you have as far as people attending the event? You have any idea, just a ballpark?
No, we're
300 to
busy.
400, we've had quite.
I mean, some years we've had low, like, because they had the volleyball and Kearney, the girls, UNL played. So some years we've had 300, some years we've had over 600, 700. It just, it really
Depends if
has
there's any
varied every
conflicts.
year.
Spring game.
Yeah, and then we had the spring game one time, so it's really varied. We have a lot of new vendors this year, and we have a new food truck coming in, so hopefully that'll make it even bigger.
Who's coming this year for the food truck?
Donovan's.
Oh, okay. That would work really well. That's the way you guys have done that.
Well, we did a poll, and a lot of people asked for them, so,
Very good.
yeah.
Make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second that.
Gibbons, Mary, seconds.
Burbine.
Yes.
Hines.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Aldridge.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Sisson.
Yes.
McDermott.
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Item 5, approve run route, street and sidewalk use for the May 5th annual Lost Way, Find Your Way 5K.
Hello again.
Welcome back.
Caught my breath, so we're good. You guys want to take one of those and pass it down? So I've attached to you the last page of the sponsorship letter that we're sending out to businesses, just so they kind of get an idea of what the route entails. On that sheet also, that second line is going to be the race bibs. You'll see our businesses are sponsored underneath there. To the right is a picture of the starting line, and underneath is the participant photo. But this year the route's going to be a little bit different. Instead of going across the tracks and going around Lake Seldom, we're going to go west of the brewery, through South Park, up and around, and it'll be 2 laps. So they'll have the opportunity to stop in the tap room and grab a mid-race drink if they want to. Call it motivation in liquid form, but so that's what the race looks like right now. We'll be sending out another reminder to all the residents in that area there, just to let them know what's going to be going on that day, what they can expect. In the letter that I sent out to them, and I'll send another one just as a reminder to have them come out on the 28th meeting if possible, because I kind of gave them short notice. That was my bad for not getting that out. But so just another reminder that we have this going on. If they have any concerns or comments that they want to bring up, we can do so here, if that's okay with you guys. But we let them know that they would be expecting participants running or walking. This year we're allowing pets, so leashed pets, so they would also be expecting some pets going throughout their neighborhood. We let them know that volunteers would be at the intersections, kind of guiding the runners as they go through, so it's another thing that they would be expecting. And as much as we try to encourage people to park in the public lots, but they could also probably expect people parking in that residential area.
You gonna have a food truck again?
Yes, sir. Food truck, live band. We've already got the YMCA doing the same thing they did last year where they had fruit at the finish line. Holdridge Softwater will also be there giving away free water at the post-race party. And then we'll also have a screen machine there as well.
Okay.
Is this on the 5th of May?
The 2nd.
We have it
Sorry.
right second. I checked it,
Sorry.
Tuesday.
That's
so
okay.
it's the 2nd.
Yes, it's the 2nd. Thank you. The race starts at 10 a.m. Last year we had 90-ish participants, and then we actually had, I think, in the high 80s actual runners that the day of. So we're expecting registration to, of course, go up this year, but that's the amount of runners that we can expect for that.
Do you have any idea what percentage of your participants were from out of town last year?
I don't, but I could get that information for our next meeting.
You don't have to come back and send an email if you want to.
Okay, yeah.
Or you're always welcome to come back.
Thanks. I will be back.
Seemed like last year, like 80% of them was from out of town or
Yeah,
something
I
like
think a
that.
good
Very high.
majority, I think a good majority of them were from out of town, so.
Are you saying we don't run here very much?
Let's just
I
say,
know I look like it, but.
We're that attractive of a town that 80% of them were coming from out of town, so.
Any other questions for Jessica?
Move we approve.
second?
Larry Gibbons?
Sisson,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Gibbons,
Yes.
Burball,
Yes.
Hines,
Abstain.
Johnson,
Yes.
Aldridge,
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6, Nebraska Public Power Economic Trends Report.
We'll just stand over there. Oh, good evening, Your Honor, council members,
Who are you talking to?
city administration. It's a little joke that started earlier this morning. My name is Ron Tillery, Executive Director of PCDC. Pleased to be here this evening to share two documents with you, the trend report. Also, we have the new official community guide to share with you as well. A point of information, these kinds of reports that we're presenting tonight really wouldn't be possible in the quality or the detail that they're presented to you this evening were it not for our partners at NPPD. We're really grateful for the support they provide us in this kind of information and also in our economic development efforts in practice. But also want to point out the contributions of the PCDC staff, in particular Stacy Pafford, who has gathered all of this raw information and provided it to NPPD so they could pull it together into these reports. Tonight we've got Rick Nelson, the senior economic developer within PPD, whom I think all of you have met before, but also with him tonight is Brian Williams, who is a colleague of Kim Lemke, who has been here before, and they're going to present the information to you. I also want to thank a few of my board members who have showed up this evening, including Reed McClimate, the president, Doug Stevenson, past president, and Tim Ream, and Grant Hens, who are also here with us this evening. So with that, all right, thanks, Ron. Batter up. All right. Well, it's a pleasure to be here in Holdridge again, and many familiar faces. And I've been coming here for a long, long time, going back to my days in the Department of Economic Development, and it is always enjoyed coming back to Holdridge. And today, Ron gave us a tour because Brian had never been to Holdridge before, and so he gave us a tour. And there's a lot of stuff going on that's happened since the last time I've been here and looked all around town. So everyone's to be complimented for that. I'm going to talk briefly about the community guide. And again, Ron already did it, commented, but special thanks to Stacy for working on
the data for that. And we are quick to remind Ron every time he calls and asks us for something that our services are available to him in PCDC because Holdridge is a customer of NPPD. So all of the array of economic development services that we provide are part of the package that you receive as a customer of NPPD. So really quick, the community guide is kind of a sales promotional piece for the communities that we serve. We encourage our communities, especially of Holdridge's size, to update it at least every 2 years. We can make annual updates of certain information because it does change, but it's a kind of a 4-color magazine, 12-page document. It's also available, I should point out, as electronically, as a PDF magazine we put on the website, the city website, the PCDC website, as people are looking at Holdridge. So it's kind of a dual purpose from a business recruitment standpoint of giving a flavor of the community and what's going on in Holdridge, but also, as we made some edits about 5 years ago, and turned it into more of a people recruitment document as well, with additional information and the layout and making it attractive to somebody who might be trying to recruit an employee or the school system trying to recruit a teacher or a doctor at the hospital. So a multi-purpose document. We're glad to have the opportunity to help Holdridge update theirs this time. And I'd answer any questions about it. Otherwise, we'll turn it over to Brian to share and discuss the trends report, which is again something else that we encourage our communities to update at least every 2 years. Kind of a snapshot of the economy in Holdridge and Phelps County. And Brian will give you kind of an update on how things look right now.
Well, let me start off by, I guess, first of all, throwing it out there. If you have any questions along the way, interrupt me, please. I would much rather this be a conversation than just me talking at you. So, like I say, questions, just stop me, raise your hand, throw something at me. It's not too hard. But I'm going to kind of go through this fairly quickly and hit the highlights. You have the report in front of you. These are the slides. They're handing out additional slides. If you want to dig deeper, most of this same material that I'm presenting is in the report. I'm just going to kind of give the highlights and an interpretation of it. So we want to jump forward a slide. So what this basically is, a study area is Phelps County, Holdridge, and the surrounding counties. So anytime you see or hear study area, that's what we're talking about, is Phelps County and those surrounding it. Jump forward again. So in terms of our labor force here in Phelps County, the largest kind of section is the other services. Government's fairly large. But government would include things like our police officers, that would include schools, college, well, that's not really college, but schools, that sort of thing would fall under that. The one little section that's pulled out here is natural resources and mining. So that section there is the section that's the biggest difference or biggest deviation from both Metro Nebraska and non-Metro Nebraska. So about 10.4% of the employment, non-farm wage and salary employment in Phelps County comes from natural resources and mining. This is our ag. That's what this is. So feedlots and stuff that are in the county is really why this is showing up and what's different. Can we jump forward? So here's the same pie charts for non-metro on the left and metro on the right. So we have the 10.4% with natural resources and mining. Non-metro Nebraska is 3.7%, and metro Nebraska, which is basically Lincoln and Omaha, metro areas, is only 0.3%. So of course non-metro is larger than metro because we're a big ag state, but Holdridge and Phelps County stands out even more than what the rest of the state would in that particular area. Jump forward. In terms of non-farm wage and salary employment, Phelps County is kind of holding its own with non-metro Nebraska, but still a little bit below Nebraska as a whole in metro Nebraska. Phelps County is that purple line there. You can see the kind of the trend in this. We saw a dip, as did most of the rest of the state when we had that recession back in 2008 through 2010 or so, but we've bounced back, as has the rest of the state. So that's good. There's growth going on here in terms of employment. Manufacturing, wage and salary employment. Manufacturing is one area that Phelps County really kind of stands out. If you look at, going back earlier and, it dipped in 2010. Again, that was the recession. It hurt us, but it hurt the rest of the state as well. But it really only took Phelps County two to 3 years to get back above this 100. So this 100 you see here is an index, where 2008 is kind of starting at 2008. That's a baseline. So what you're seeing here with this, the 110 would be basically a 10% increase over what we saw in 2008. So we've got a 6.4% increase in the manufacturing. That's a strong point. We, here in Phelps County, it only took 2 years to get back up and recover from that. The rest of the state took, almost until 2017 to really come anywhere close to recovering. So it recovered a lot quicker here. Go forward. Here is our labor force and employment trends for Phelps County. Actually, our total labor force here in Phelps County is declining slightly from 2008 to 2018. We have seen that level off over the last couple of years, so that's a good sign that that's the labor force is declining. I think part of that is the age of the population. As people retire, they leave the workforce. One good thing here, though, if you look on the right-hand axis, is the unemployment. So the unemployed workers in this green line, unemployment and unemployed workers is decreasing. So that's what we want to see. We want to see these workers getting back into the workforce and decline. We want to see that decline. Forward. So next I'm going to talk about, and I think this is really where there's a lot of room for improvement, a lot of room for growth, is the workflow patterns, the movement of people in and out of Phelps County, in and out of Holdridge, and where those workers are going to and coming from. So on the left we see the work destination, and I'll show you a slide on work destination. That's basically where the residents in a selected area work, or where they're commuting to work. So that's for those that live within Phelps County or live within Holdridge. Where are they going? Where is their destination? Where do they get in their car and drive to for work each morning for those that live here? On the other side, we have our home destination. So this is where workers in a selected area live. So when 5 o'clock hits and the workers here in Phelps County, the workers here in Holdridge get in their car and go home, where are they driving to?
And take their paychecks with them.
And take their paychecks with them, exactly. And we'll kind of get to some of that here in a minute too, because that has an impact. When they go home and they take their paychecks with them, that has an impact on our economy here. So let's jump forward. Here is our work destination report. This is for those, again, those living here in Holdridge. Where are they going to work? And the vast majority, in this case, about 63%, 63.1%, are staying here in Phelps County. Not necessarily here in Holdridge, but somewhere within Phelps County. So it could be somebody here that's going out of town working at a feedlot, but they're staying here in Phelps County. The next largest is Buffalo County, which about 8% of our workers are going to. And this is kind of where this could have an impact as well. So when we have workers from Holdridge that are going to Buffalo County, to Kearney, to work, what might they do? They might stop at the grocery store and pick up groceries in Kearney and bring them home with them. They might take that business elsewhere and bring it here rather than shopping at grocery stores here. So that's kind of an opportunity there, try to get some of those workers to come back here, do their shopping here, work here, keep their paychecks here, that sort of thing. Any questions? Yep.
Is that the people who work out of their homes, their home office might be Omaha or Lincoln?
I think some of this is picked up, especially if you look at Lincoln. How far is it to drive?
To Lincoln?
2 hours.
2 hours. So
50 miles.
some of this might be some people that are at least part of the time telecommuting. They may be sitting in their home office here, telecommuting in Lincoln. So there is probably some of that maybe their work address shows up as Lincoln, their work address shows up as Omaha, but they're actually technically staying here. And those wouldn't be the types that I would be as concerned about. But yeah, there is potential for some of that. Go forward, yeah. This one is the home destination report. So again, these are people that are working here in Phelps County. Where do they go when they get in their car and drive home? And as Ron said, they get in their car, drive home, and take their paycheck with them. So we have about 59.2% of those who work in Holdridge that live within Phelps County. But we also have 165 people, or 6%, that work in Holdridge and go home to Kearney. Another almost 6% work in Holdridge, go home to somewhere in Harlan County. So another, that brings up more discussion. How do we, and these are the ones that I would focus more on, how do we get these guys, these 165 that are going to Buffalo County, the almost 60 that are going to Harlan County, how do you get these commuters to buy a home, to bring their kids here to school, to contribute to the community besides just working here? And I think there's some opportunities here. We've had a lot of discussion as it relates to this. For example, Buffalo County, maybe you have one spouse that works in Kearney and one spouse that works here, and one of them has to commute. Well, how do you maybe get that Kearney spouse here so that they move here as a couple? And so those types of questions, I think, are some questions that need to be asked in thinking about what can we do to get some of this workforce here and bring them in to contribute to Holdridge's economy, to contribute to the parks, to participate in the community and make the community a better place. Any questions? All right, yeah, go. This is kind of the same thing, but it's really looking more at only Holdridge. So the last one was looking at Holdridge workers commuting to Phelps County. This is Holdridge commuting to Holdridge. So it's only looking at the community of Holdridge. Similar numbers, but maybe slightly more extreme in terms of those living and employed in the selected area of the primary jobs. We've got 44.5% in-area labor force, and then 44.3% in-area employment efficiency. So that's lower than that 59 and 63% that we saw on those previous slides. But that's kind of saying some of these workers are going out. They're still staying in the county, but they're going out of town. That's kind of the difference there. But still, still tells kind of the same story. Go forward here. In terms of the population for Phelps County, we're seeing that decline slowly. Over the last 10 years, it's been about a 0.3% loss in population per year. I understand there are some efforts to bring people in, And I think that's where the opportunities are. We're seeing employment grow here. The economy here is doing quite well. But how do we get those people to move here that are working here and bring this growth to either level or grow it slightly? So Phelps County about 0.3% annual decline. Holdridge is doing a little bit better than Phelps County as a whole, only a 0.2% annual decline. But there's some opportunities because the economy is doing well here. There's some opportunities to keep or try to bring some of these residents back from other areas that are commuting out and calling somewhere else home. In terms of where or the net migration kind of by age, the big take-home point from this, I think, is if you look at those 18 to 24-year-olds, we're losing 100 people just out of that age group. But in my opinion, I say, let those people leave. Why would I say that? Where are a lot of these people going, 18 to 24-year-olds? College. Let them leave. Let them go to college. But we want to see this 25 to 44 grow. So let them leave. Let them go to college. But what do we need to do to bring them back when they're in that 25 to 44 age range, where they're going to come back to Holdridge, they're going to, find a job, they're going to build a home or move into a home, buy a home, raise a family, and hopefully stay here, for the rest of their careers and hopefully the rest of their lives. So, and we're seeing, we lost about 9 people out of there, out of that age group. So how do you bring those 18 to 24-year-olds that leave and go to college back? And I think that kind of needs to be the target age range that you want to try to get to come back, because they're going to be here for 30, 40, maybe 50 years. They're going to hopefully spend the rest of their life here and raise a family. That as they come back, maybe they work in Lincoln or Omaha for a couple of years, then come back, and they have a kid in Lincoln or Omaha, they're bringing in some of those 1 to 17-year-olds with them. So if you bring those back, you're also going to help those 1 to 17-year-olds as well. And those are the kids that are going to our schools and stuff here. Any questions here? All right, jump forward again. And this kind of goes on to that same story that you're seeing, or that I was telling before. There's a net migration out of those bachelor's or some college. So they're leaving and they're not coming back. Ideally what we would want to see is we would want to see that actually be positive. We want to see people coming here that have those bachelor's degrees, that have a 2-year technical degree that's working in some of the manufacturers, bring some of them people back. The somewhat positive thing here is that we're not losing them to out of state. Most of them we're losing to other counties within Nebraska. So maybe we're losing them to Kearney. Maybe there's some opportunity to bring them back from Kearney. If that's where we're losing them to, is maybe a surrounding county, there could be some opportunities to bring them back, whereas losing them to another state might be a little bit more difficult to bring them back. So there's not an all bad thing here that they're only going to another county within Nebraska, because we could be able to bring them back. Next. Median age, I kind of hinted at this a little bit earlier in that workforce declining. We may be seeing a few people retiring that are bringing down that labor force number. Median age for Phelps County is 42.1 compared to the median age for the state is 36.3. Holdridge is roughly a year younger median age than what Phelps County is. So it's an older population-wise median age is a little bit older than what the rest of the state is. Not too bad compared to a lot of the surrounding counties, except for Buffalo County and Dawson County. Buffalo County, why would that be so low? college. So, you know, really compared to the rest, except for one, because the college throws that Buffalo County off a little bit, still Phelps County is doing better on median age than the rest of the surrounding counties. Questions so far? Okay, let's go ahead and jump forward again. This is kind of a little bit tied to some of that commuting and stuff that we had talked about. This is retail sales pull factor. So to get this number, we basically look at the per capita retail sales. And the state average per capita retail sales is 1.0. If you're non-metro Nebraska, for example, the per capita retail sales comes out to, or let's back up a minute. So 1.0 is you divide the Nebraska per capita retail sales by Nebraska retail sales. That's, you're going to get 1. If you divide the non-metro Nebraska per capita retail sales by the Nebraska per capita retail sales, you get 0.8. So what that's saying is non-metro Nebraska is about 80% of what Nebraska as a whole is on per capita retail sales. So the 0.62 of Phelps County, the Phelps County pull factor of 0.62 is saying the pull factor or the retail sales, per capita retail sales here in Phelps County is about 62% of what the Nebraska retail sales is. And I think some of this has to do with the commuting. You've got, you know, some of your workers that are commuting out to go and take their paychecks out of the county. You've got some that maybe are commuting out of town for work that pick up groceries before they come home. And that's taking that money out. That's draining it out. So how do you bring that back in? As far as how it compares here, Buffalo County to surrounding counties, Buffalo County is the highest, 1.22. So that's basically saying that Buffalo County is 22% higher than the state average per capita retail sales. Whereas somebody like Franklin County, they're only 29%. But relative to, with the exception of Dawson County and Buffalo County, relative to surrounding counties, Phelps County is doing a little bit better. Can we jump forward? This is the same thing, but breaking it down by communities. And these are kind of comparable communities around here and how Holdridge would compare to them. So Holdridge is actually doing better than what Phelps County is, which makes sense. This is kind of the center of commerce for Phelps County. People living out in the county are coming in here to do business. So 0.95, it's only 5% less than non-metro Nebraska, but that's actually better than what, or 0.5% less than all of Nebraska, but it's actually better than what non-metro Nebraska is. So Holdridge really as a community or as a town, Holdridge is doing okay. The rest of the county is falling a little bit behind. Other communities around us, Kearney is of course the highest with 1.7. Cambridge is 1.21. The rest are a little bit lower. Lexington's 1.2, but that's being right off the interstate helps them too. But yes.
This will probably be a little different now that we lost our Shopco store though, so.
Somewhat.
Because
yes.
that pulled a lot of people.
Yes.
So.
The question I guess I would have with that is, and I've got a graph coming up here that shows a little bit of a drop in it, but the question I would have is how much of that retail activity that's going to Shopco is going to a different store in town versus leaking out of town completely. And we probably will not see it completely show up in the numbers. There, I think it's April that the updated state revenue numbers would come out so we can recalculate this. I don't think it'll completely show up in those numbers. We have to wait one more year to see what the actual impact's going to be so we get a full year's. we'll get a little bit of an idea off of this year's numbers, but it's gonna be another year before we really see what that impact is. But it's really, ultimately, it's gonna depend on, are they taking their business to elsewhere in the community, or are they taking it outside the community?
It just kind of shows the loss of any business hurts,
Yeah,
big or small.
true, yeah.
Yeah.
Before you go, there's one slide, there's one table in your presentation, in your packet. The full study was not included in the presentation, and that was comparing Holdridge to similar sized communities around the state. And just maybe for the, as a point of reference, so these were towns roughly between 4,500 and just over 6,000. And just as an example of what some of those were, so Ogallala, their pull factor was 1.69. They're on the interstate. They have tourism as a large aspect of what they're doing. So, yeah. Wahoo, 0.72, so less than what Holdridge is doing, but they're competing with Lincoln, Fremont, and Omaha. Aurora, though they're on the interstate, they're 0.81. They're probably affected by Grand Island. Shatter is 1.19, to college up there. Wayne, 1.01. Sydney, 1.78. There's still a Cabela's store in Sydney. Schuyler, though, 0.46. So that just gives you an idea. So it does depend on geography, transportation network. Interesting one, Gretna is 4.36, but they annexed Nebraska Crossing. So they're getting the benefit of that, the retail sales at that location. So
I think I think they're the highest in the state.
well, we actually did this for Hickman a couple of years ago and looked at all the other communities in Lancaster County. Actually, the village of Roca had a pull factor of over 9. No, but when you dig into it, the zip code for Roca included all the businesses at the intersection of Highway 77 and Saltillo Road. So Rod's Outdoor Power Equipment, there's a truck stop convenience station. All those businesses actually technically were counted towards Roca. So there are little factors. The size of the community, is there a big draw of a restaurant or a retail operation can really make a big difference in the numbers in a small community. But really it's geography and transportation network and commuting as you.
What do you got for York? You got that much out?
York, when was the last time we did theirs?
I even presented theirs a few weeks ago.
It's probably in the upper one, under 2, but above 1.5 maybe.
I think they're under 1.5, but just barely. Just barely. If I remember right.
Somewhere in that range.
Which, there is in here, I have, and you guys have a color version of it, but towards the end, there's a state map.
Oh, yeah.
And in this state map, and I have a slide for it, but I'm not gonna show it, unless you guys wanna see it, but there's a state map in this packet here, where the darker the red, the lower the pull factor, the darker the blue, the higher the pull factor. And really it's, you can see those retail trade centers around the state. And it kind of shows that regional impact of, I-80 has an impact. Those trade centers, those larger cities have an impact on the surrounding counties, that sort of thing. So geography does play a huge role.
And I think the one we just did for Wahoo, actually, Lincoln, has a much lower pull factor than you might think.
Yeah.
They were a whole lot over 1, if I remember right.
Lincoln, so that's the interesting thing. If you were to look at the pull factor for Lincoln and Omaha both, they're both very close to 1. Why might that be though? Because there's so many people that having, say, 1,000 people come from Fremont to Omaha or from Seward to Lincoln to go shopping, those 1,000 people are barely going to move that needle in the grand scheme of things for Lincoln. But Holdridge, if you were to bring 1,000 people in to come Holdridge shopping, that's really going to move the needle. And that's why things like Cabela's in Sydney are really moving that needle there. They're bringing in a lot of people. Or Gretna, the Nebraska Crossing Mall in Gretna, that's why it's having such a big impact, is because it's a fairly small community, but it's bringing in a lot of business for that community size. Whereas Lincoln and Omaha, a few extra people aren't going to really move the needle either, any which direction. Other questions? We jump forward. So here's kind of how it's trended over time. There was a large drop from 14 to 15 in the pull factor for Phelps County or for Holdridge. We've had some conversations. We haven't been able to put our finger on quite what it was that caused that drop. But since then, it's trended a little bit lower. We could see, with the loss of Shopko, we could see a similar drop. Like I say, it's just going to depend on how many other businesses in Holdridge are going to absorb those shoppers, are going to absorb that business.
Could that be affected by online sales, that they're starting to increase?
It could. It could, yes. That's a good question, though, now that I'm thinking
you
about
hear
it,
more and
because
more
now
people are doing that. So.
the online sales are starting to come back to the community.
Yeah.
And some of this is sales tax, or part of it is driven by the sales tax numbers. So with those online sales tax coming back to the community, it could potentially cause this to come back up, too.
We've learned that the leakage in our market due to online sales is about $88 million a year. So, it's a significant number.
Yeah, but with those online, it might make this move up a little bit, but I guess the other question is, do those online sales really help Holdridge? Other than the sales tax?
Other than tax. Yeah.
Other than the sales tax, no. Because they're not helping our local business. So it could move.
It's not like people coming to town and going to a restaurant while they're shopping.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, exactly. So it might cause that pull factor to bump up, but it probably wouldn't be, you wouldn't see the positive effects of that increase in the community. Good job. Any comments, questions? I'll go ahead and jump. I guess that's all I've got. Any other questions, comments? All right.
And to just put an exclamation point on this, this data really emphasizes the importance of what we've been trying to do with recruiting commuters into the community. And over the past 2.5 years, we've relocated about 160 people from outside Phelps County into either Holdridge or the surrounding area. The importance of developing more housing units that meet the needs of those people. We've got to do that concurrently to that recruitment effort. And also the importance of building a place where people want to relocate to, especially younger people. A lot of people are making decisions about where they want to live. At the same time, they're making the decision about career. So there are a lot of choices out there. We need to make sure that Holdridge is a first choice among people that are looking for a smaller community. And that involves improving our retail sales environment, improving community amenities, recreational, and other discretionary things that add to the overall quality of life. So that's part of PCDC's mission, and it really needs to be all of our mission to accomplish that so that we can make this the best community possible. So thank you for your time. Yes, sir.
Ron, could you clarify that $88 million? What was that?
Yeah, with our relationship with Retail Strategies, we've identified our guided market area, which includes all of the areas outside of our traditional, say, 20-minute drive time, places like Norton, Kansas, Phillipsburg, Kansas, and we have data captured from within that trade area that shows that $88 million is leaving that market. through online sales. Now, when you drill down just to the Holdridge primary trade area, that number is reduced to 66 million. But that's a lot of money leaving the market. If we had retail services available that could satisfy those people that are making transactions online, we might be able to recover some of that. But it's going to be a hard road for us to travel, but we intend to do what we can to get more retail in the market to satisfy those needs.
Well, not only that, keep them from driving right through us to go to Kearney.
We want to put up some roadblocks.
Yeah.
Detour.
In the form of services and merchants that they want to see. And that means more sales tax in the city.
Ron, are we getting the sales tax now on stuff that's bought over the internet? I mean, is that
I'm
flowing
not sure how
back
the
yet?
state is distributing that back, but they're capturing it now. I don't know how it's being allocated back to the cities.
The state's capturing it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not clear on that.
Yeah, I didn't know if that comes back to individual communities and.
It's supposed to, but I can guarantee you, we're not gonna get everything we're entitled to.
They
It's
do
done
it,
away.
I think, by zip code.
Zip code?
I think so, yeah, so. But
Do you know when those distributions will start?
not for sure.
We haven't seen that pot of gold coming in then, Dane.
Not today.
Well, fortunately, the last half of last year, we saw sales taxes rebound here. And we recovered a 19% deficit in the last half of the year. That's good news for us, despite the closing of Shopco. So people were moving their purchases to other stores, and I think the overall health of the market contributed to that.
I think the closing of Shopko hurt this community. I hear from people all the time, and they don't buy that stuff here in town at another vendor. They go to Kearney.
You're right, and we can't let those habits get
No.
rigidified so that when we do offer new services, they will come back. We're working hard on that, but the owner of the property has not been as good a partner as we wish they had been. We've delivered a number of different prospects to them for consideration, and so far, we're just not getting communication back on what's happening to those. We're working on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, Rick? Thank you. Item 7. Two Rivers Public Health Quarterly Report. Was that the 5-minute session?
Dane said 50. Just joking. Good evening, council members, mayor, city staff. Jeremy Eshelman, health director at Two Rivers Public Health Department. I have with me Glenda Fravor, assistant health director. And as I alluded to before, she exists. And I want her just maybe just to introduce herself and say a few things, and we'll get into our quick monologue.
Hi, I've been here for about 5 months now, so I was glad to be able to come and meet you all. I actually grew up, I live in Kearney now, but I grew up in Wilcox, so I'm very familiar with the area. My family owned the lumberyard there, so I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah. So thank you, and Glenn and I'll probably pitch it on a few things here. So first thing probably what you want to know about is coronavirus, right? It's been in the news, it's hot. I can say in short, we've been doing a lot of mass media, a lot of social media, a lot of partner education, and that's what we want to talk about just really briefly today without giving you any more information than what you want. So currently, as of today, we're monitoring 15 individuals we call travelers, and so this is a constantly evolving issue that we see both the education guides we're receiving, in addition to the information that we get is constantly evolving. You may see things in the news from the New York Times, you see national news. Of course, something part of the national news is hyperbole, but nonetheless. So a key differentiation of travelers. Travelers are people that have recently traveled to an area that is endemic with coronavirus. They're not currently sick, so they're asymptomatic. So those individuals that we're currently having report to us per state and national guidelines, they report to our community health nurse on a daily basis if they spike a temperature, have symptoms of coronavirus, and then we take additional steps at that point in time. So at this point in time, we have nobody within our 7 county district that has coronavirus that we're concerned about. Now, just to note, coronavirus is a class of viruses. The common cold fits in this, among other things, so it's a wide class. You've probably seen all sorts of things on social media. I think there's a bovine vaccination for coronavirus, among other things. So there's just a lot of things out there, a lot of misinformation too, but nonetheless, one thing I want to let you know about right away is we are standing up a city, county, also city county attorney, local law enforcement, also emergency managers, plugging all individuals together. So Dane will probably use the key contact, and anyone that's interested or able to participate in those. It's going to be a Zoom sort of call across our district, hopefully towards the end of this week, maybe early next week, just to provide you additional needed information at that time. We do have policies in place, regulations in place if we need to isolate and quarantine. We call that directed health measures. Those are pretty standard regulations across the state of Nebraska. They were drafted back in 2006. So it's just more of a refresher and up to date. That being said, I personally believe, unless we see a case in the next couple of weeks, it's probably going to be highly ineffective. If you look at the national map today, we're seeing probably at least a dozen states that have active cases, some that are community acquired, meaning we don't know where it came from. There is a thought, and this is just a thought, there's no data to support this in public health at this point in time, that there's maybe asymptomatic people, meaning individuals that have coronavirus that have no symptoms. That's quite possible. That's a theory only. There's no data at this time to support that. So that being said, once we get what's called community acquired, community spread coronavirus, it's kind of like a wildfire. It's difficult to control at that point in time. So those draconian measures of isolation, quarantine are highly effective. So the things that we're doing at this point in time, providing a lot of education around what we call non-pharmaceutical interventions, which is a highly sophisticated way to say the basic things. Wash your hands, cover your cough, try to stay a little ways away from somebody. What we know is about 6 feet is that magic distance, that if you are sick with this, you cough or sneeze, then people in that circle probably have a high chance of getting sick with that also. These are things that we know. It's not surprising. We're also standing up some communications for local superintendents. We've been talking with a lot of superintendents, schools. It follows a lot of the same parameters of seasonal flu. Unless schools are willing to close for the duration of the illness, the incubation period, we're saying loosely is about 14 days. It's actually a little bit shorter than that, but we have a couple life cycles in there. It's highly effective. Same thing with seasonal flu. Unless the school's willing to close for that period, it doesn't really, at least the research doesn't support it's effective. So now we've heard like internationally, Japan closed schools for a month. I mean, if you're going to take steps like that, that can be effective. You know, if you have a lot of disease going on at that point in time. So at this point in time, we're not advising for closures of mass events. But it's a constantly evolving world we live in, so you know, maybe tomorrow if something blows up, we'll let you know. But same thing in schools, we're not advising that. But it is something we're constantly managing, monitoring, and all of our staff are engaged at this point. We've been monitoring this for about 6-7 weeks already. I think we're just talking internally. I think on week 2 of working about 80 hours a week, you know, just so if it shows, that's what it is. Just like we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes to try to stay ahead of this as best we can. So. Just give you some information on seasonal flu. Seasonal flu is still high. You have a greater chance at this point in time being sick with seasonal flu. We see a lot of A, a lot of B going on. And just to give you a little insight in, so coronavirus, somebody thinks they have coronavirus, how does that work in a healthcare setting? So here at Phelps, you know, taking several calls from Phelps and things like that. So healthcare providers, we have a great partnership with healthcare providers across all South Central Nebraska. We have a lot of great folks that work well together. So they do what's called differential diagnosis. They work through the things that are common first. There's a saying in medical school that if you hear a stampede going on, think horses, not zebras. Think what's common first is what it amounts to. So don't think Ebola, don't think Zika, don't think those other things. Let's rule out the things that are common first, which is really true. We had one person that, so just go back a second. So travelers is one categorization of people we're following. Persons under investigation are those people that are high risk. People that have traveled and they have symptoms. We have one person like that we're monitoring just last night into today, that we just found out that person's negative. That's good. We assumed it probably would be, but you never know what's going on. It's amazing to me how many people travel to South Central Nebraska and Holdridge and Kearney internationally. I've never had that joy, I guess. Beyond an occasional trip here or there, but especially those areas that we're talking about. So I know one person on our board of health, Tana Fye, you guys probably all know her, and Mike, they're going to Egypt, and I said, so I talked to her before she left. I said, hey, how are we going to get a hold of you if we need you in that interim? So back to seasonal flu for a second. In this year, current flu season we're in, which spans the 2019 flu season, fall into about now. In Nebraska, we've had, it looks like, 369 hospitalizations. And just to give an idea, for the U.S. spanning that same time frame, it's about 48 people per 100,000. So by far, that's our highest risk at this point in time, is seasonal influenza. The one thing, going back to coronavirus just for a second, we do know those that have higher comorbidities. That means other diseases, they're sick already, have respiratory concerns, are at higher risk for potential hospitalization and death. So that being said, done a lot of work in that area, but I'll let Glenda talk a little bit more about that community health assessment, if that's okay.
So actually, it was very interesting to listen to NPPD's presentation, because those numbers are going to help us a little bit with understanding. We're doing a community health assessment, and we're doing it in our district, so I say community, but it's several communities. So we cover 7 counties. I'm going to pass this around, it just tells you a little bit about it. But what we're trying to find out by talking to a lot of people and conducting surveys and assessments is, how are we doing as a community, the district, in meeting people's needs, in their physical care needs, their mental health needs, environmental health, all of those elements, to see how well we're doing. And we're doing it, we actually have a website. There's a link on there that you can take a survey. It's a real short survey. And we've gotten over 200 of those back, so that's being very helpful. And then we're also doing focus groups in each county. We've had a focus group in Holdridge last week. We're doing one in Lexington. So we're just in the middle of doing those, where we pull a few people together from different groups, for example, elderly, or the Hispanic population, or we have young professionals, to ask some key questions of just how are we meeting needs, and whether we're doing a good job at it. So that's something, we're going to have the final report out probably in July, so we're in the middle of doing it now, and once we get all the data, that will be compiled, and then we'll have that full report.
Mental health seems to be a very big issue these days. What are you doing, or what can we do for some of these mental health issues? Band-Aids don't fix them, I understand.
Yeah.
It's from my understanding, there's going to be a building here that's, I can't remember the name of the organization.
SCAR?
SCAR, yes, I'm sure you're familiar with it, which I'm super excited about. I used to work for Region 3 Behavioral Health, so I worked with individuals that were mentally ill. And I know that there is all of Nebraska has a great need, actually, and the farther west you go, the more, it seems like. So as we're hoping to find out some information to contribute to possible solutions. So again, I'm not sure I have an answer for that.
I don't think anybody does.
But I'm very optimistic. That's a great step in the right direction, that group, SCAR, is putting that together. I think that's going to be very helpful.
We do have some funds allocated through the state of Nebraska through a subaward for, it's called an opioid subaward, but actually it's broader than that. It's for abuse of prescription illicit drugs, generally speaking. We know the data suggests, at least at this point in time, methamphetamines are still primarily the most illicit use drug in rural Nebraska. Opioids are a concern. I mean, I have a personal story, catch me on the street, I'll tell you about it sometime. I have a sister-in-law that got hooked on that, you know, heroin and jail, all that thing, stuff. So, but nonetheless, it's behavioral health, mental health, abuse of drugs go hand in hand. It's really a paradigm. So how do we fix that? That's a great question. Part of that sub-award process we're going to be doing some strategic planning, engaging local law enforcement, probably plugging chief in as possible, and also regions and things like that. So just looking at potential solutions there. So I don't think we have the answers per se, but we're hoping our communities will have the answer as we get together for that. So that's a great question.
I had a neighbor after he evicted his daughter that, come find out, I think she was on a diet because I found a gram scale. And I thought,
Weighing the lettuce, I'm sure. So,
any questions for Linda or Jeremy?
thank you so much.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
coming
for your time.
and your report. Thanks for all that you did for our community.
Thank you.
Item 8, review of Swedish Days activities.
You know, people have a tendency to look at me a little sideways at times, but I don't know about you guys, but tonight's meeting was very informative. I got so much out of this. Even from the auditor's report, 10 PPDs and this Twin Rivers here, great meeting tonight. I'll try not to bring it down.
I was gonna say, now it's gonna change.
Well, we're gonna try to lighten it up here a little bit. Swedish Day. Last year was our third year, and we're going into our fourth. Last year was kind of a hallmark for us, simply because after 3 years of a lot of work and sweat and whatnot, we were able to give back to the community. Our first year, we had a little bit of profit. Second year was a little bit better, but we were a little nervous, so we held on to our profits. Last year, knocked it out of the park. And so we were able to combine our second year's and last year's profits and give back to the community in the tune of $8,400. We gave $800 to each teammates, L2 for Kids, and the flood relief for Phelps County. Then we also gave $6,000 to our Veterans Memorial Fund.
Thank you.
So that is, that's what it's about. It's a community event, and this is what we're here for. We're not here to make money and make things better for us personally. It's the community. It's a family. Getting back to last year's event, our state cook-off, our Holdridge Marketplace state cook-off, we had 27 entries. Lost Way Brewery, we had 16 entries in the sauce contest. Hopefully we'll get that up a little bit more. And our KCBS barbecue, we had 31 teams. Now to me, that's pretty unique. We're sitting here in central Nebraska. Over 3 years, we're averaging 31 teams per year, which is pretty good. But we're going to do better. Friday night, our attendance keeps going up. First year we were out there, we had about 700 people, and we had 9. Last year we had probably over 1,200 people on Main Street. And I think it went really well. One of the highlights for me on Friday night was the national anthem that we did. We raised, the volunteer fire department brought their truck in. We raised a flag over the intersection there, 5th and West Avenue. And we did the national anthem, and I thought that's probably I want to say we're probably the only barbecue that does that. I don't know why, but something unique. We got a lot of compliments off that. So that's kind of last year. This year, we're pushing to get bigger and better. One of the things we're really excited about is our state contest that we did with Holdridge Marketplace. We've always done one contest on a Friday night, and we've had 27 entries. And out of those 27 entries, we probably had 10 teams that drive in just for that contest. Now, they cook their steak, they go home. Well, we decided to push that envelope a little bit. We're doing 2 contests. We're doing a double this year. We got turn-ins an hour apart. And with that alone, I suspect we're gonna go from 27 entries, probably close to 40 entries per contest. We're probably gonna bring in 10 teams that are just gonna drive in for that event, simply because they can come to one place, do 2 contests, go home. So I'm expecting a lot of big things off of that. I've got a lot of really, really good compliments and comments from teams that are excited about that. So I'm looking for a big uptick there. On the barbecue side, we're really pushing for about 40 teams. Last year we had 31 teams. We didn't use the south parking lot. So with 45 teams, we're going to drift into that, and then we'll figure out where we can put them after that. So currently we've got about 12 teams signed up, and we just had like 3 teams this week signed up. So that number's going to start creeping up. One of the things that we do in the meantime to drive that number to really get out, we go out and over to other contests and talk to teams. Last August, I went down to Dodge City, Kansas, and talked to teams out of Texas. And they knew of our contest. They knew the trophies, they knew the contest. We've got a good rapport out there. And I'm looking for about 2 or 3 teams out of Oklahoma. Maybe I can pull one out of Texas that are passing through. We're represented right now by 6 states consistently, and I could see us getting to 8 or 9 states pretty easy. So things are growing. And that's all nice and neat for the teams and whatnot. One of the things that we got to remember is the public, the people that support our group here and our community. So we're going to do a raffle. And you guys can pass that around. I got a couple here. But what you're looking at is a drum smoker. Kind of a new thing on the competition market in the backyard. But it's basically a 55-gallon drum. We've worked a deal out with Oil City Drums out of, I believe it's Wyoming. And they're going to build us a drum. Do a nice paint scheme on it, kind of a patriotic thing. So what you're seeing there isn't necessarily what we're going to get. It's close. But we're going to raffle that off to the public and anybody. $5 a ticket, 5 tickets for $20, something like that. But if they don't know how to use a drum, because it's a little different, I'll give them a class. But the big thing on this is all the proceeds of that raffle will go to the Veterans Memorial Fund. You know, so, and then if our group does well again, we'll be looking at where we can put those community dollars back into the community. So we're getting better. We're morphing, and things are better. Our ticket prices are going to be coming down again this year, so it's better for the public. And the key thing that I like to see on Friday night is the families. We not only have mom and dad out there, but we have their kids. And everybody's having fun, they got food, they're enjoying themselves, there's laughter, even despite the heat. But it's just a lot of fun. And it's a boon for the community. FPBD was talking about moving that needle between the car show and us and Swedish Days. I think that weekend we moved that needle quite a bit. So with that, I really want to thank the city again for all the help you guys do. I try not to ask for a lot, but what I do ask for, you guys knock it out of the park. I get compliments all the time, just from the teams of how the community supports us and the city supports us. So with that, thank you. With that, I'm just going to open it up for questions. You guys got comments, thoughts, things that we need to improve on, let me know. You know where I'm at.
Good. Go ahead, Doug.
One thing I think this is great the way it's grown and stuff, but we need to remember some of the traditional Swedish Day events that go on. I know the senior center does some stuff and the museum does some things. And I think they're getting lost in the advertising because it's being billed kind of toward the barbecue side.
Right.
And I know last year, some of the events that went on that have gone on for years, I think kind of got pushed back because they were at the same time a lot of this was going on.
And that's
and that's kind of geared kind of toward our older
Right.
community.
Right, and
So,
I kind of took that, so I kind of heard a few of the things like you were talking,
Yeah.
a little bit in the background.
just
I'm
something
not
to keep
sure-
in mind, I think,
Yeah.
as far as
I'm not sure how I
keeping them in
can,
the loop.
how we can address that. I've kind of started talking to Jessica a little bit about this. Not as a true talking point, but something that we've got to talk about. One of the things that I've always been concerned with is how can we morph the barbecue Swedish days more into our local retailers? What can we do to help those guys out? Because in my mind, we don't do a lot right now that helps those guys out. That's the question I ask the retailers, and it's just a yearly question, guys. What can we do to help you out?
Along with that, a lot of times by noon Saturday, it seems like everything's kind of done.
Yeah.
If it could extend a little longer into Saturday, maybe it'd keep a few more people around for the retail.
We've got a
too,
few
so.
ideas that we're kicking around on that. Maybe not so much on the barbecue side of it, maybe another event, but the other side of that is, on Saturday night is the reunions. They usually have their own class dinners. So people kind of disperse and disappear. So, it's a moving target. I know exactly what
it's
you're
hard
saying.
to balance it all out.
Yeah, I don't have all the answers by any means, but it's one of those things we gotta keep looking at. Swedish Days is what it is. It's a celebration of community. Barbecue is nice, but the community is Swedish.
Yeah.
So we gotta keep that in mind. We gotta figure something out.
Yeah. So appreciate all the work you're putting into it.
We're trying.
All the barbecue was good, but what I took out of down there, it was a terrific social time to bring the community together. They were just milling around. Nobody was in any hurry to go. We don't have too many things like that to pull everybody together and just mingle, get to know the neighbors or other people. And a lot of conversations were going on. Nobody was in a hurry to leave.
Last year, I really took note of that because the first year we did this, our beer garden was fenced and it was really small. Outside the beer garden, there wasn't much going on as far as the public conversing. The last few years, we expanded our beer garden, not necessarily so people can walk around with alcohol, but it's so they can go out and talk to the teams, and the teams love it. That's one of the compliments we get so much from our committee is it's not, hey, do you need ice, and they're gone. It's, hey, you need ice, how's your family doing? Our committee knows these people pretty much personally. I know a lot of these guys, and I see them around the circuit a lot. And that's one of the things that makes Holdridge unique, is we're a family, we're a community. And by opening that up and allowing people to wander and talk, it's really something quite unique. You know, if you really sit down and watch, it's really fun. So I'm a little hot at those too. So.
Well, it really helps too with the Spirit of Grace Church when they leave that open, you know,
Yes.
for people to sit and air conditioned and eat and everything. I mean, especially on hot days and people get tired, they get refreshed and go back out. And
we have great support downtown.
yeah.
And that's why I said there's got to be something we can come up with, an idea, some way to help our local retailers out. I don't know what it is. I've been racking my brain for 3 years. But there's got to be something that we can do to help those guys out, to get the people not only out for the barbecue, into the stores. I don't know what it is. But there's people smarter than me out there that probably have an idea. So I'm open to that question, that answer, that conversation anytime you guys want. You know, this is my community as much as it is yours. And the better we can make it, it's what we do. So, with that, I've been told I have a 3-minute window. I'm probably about 3 minutes over.
3.5.
You owe us. We're keeping track.
I understand. But again, thanks for everything you guys do for the city. Our city guys, when they come out and help us, they knock this thing out of the park every time. So with that, I'll get out of your hair. Unless you guys get more questions, comments. You know where I'm at. If you got an idea, a thought, let me know. And we'll see what we can do. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson.
I don't know about that Mr. stuff. All right.
Item 9, consider ordinance 2435, amending Chapter 8, Article 7 of the Holdridge Municipal Code relating to street trees.
John was gonna try and make it, and apparently he can't make it. This almost, redoes the entire tree ordinance that the city of Holdridge has. And it's primarily pertaining to, the official street tree species list, which is kept on file down in the office. The tree board went through it and tried to make it more appealing for the citizens of Holdridge to plant trees in a right-of-way. So if someone wants a tree plant up front, they're supposed to contact the tree board. And then also any memorial trees that they'd like to be planted. So this is just cleaning up the tree ordinance because the list was actually in the ordinance itself, and the tree board felt they wanted to take it out so they could maybe adjust it as be seated instead of coming and changing the ordinance every time they want to change the tree list.
Tree board's all good with all the changes?
The tree board approved this. It's taken, they were supposed to go to the tree board in January, and they were not able to meet. And it went to them in February, and they approved it prior. So, yeah, I got their approval before we brought it to the council.
Any questions? Right.
Before you have final reading, do you have like a red line version of this I can get look over? So that I don't have to sit there with my rulers and compare it.
No, I do not.
Okay, well, before you pass the red line version, I'd like to study this over. I mean, before you pass the final reading, I'd like to look this over so I know what we're approving.
We're no hurry.
I'd move to table this.
Well, you could go ahead with the first reading.
I'd also kind of like to see the current list of trees.
I missed that, Mary. Was that a motion?
It wasn't actually a motion to table it.
All the reading?
That's what I'm intending. But if you want to go ahead and pass first, that's fine too.
We can table it and do it all at one shot.
Yeah. It's not anything that's a pressure deal.
Yeah.
We have a motion to table.
I'll second the table.
Mike Sisson seconds to.
Randy had you seconded before. Randy had seconded.
Okay.
That's all right, Randy, go ahead.
I went quick enough.
Givens,
Yeah.
Burbine,
Yes.
Hines,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Aldridge,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Sisson,
Yes.
McDermott.
Yes.
Motion to table has been approved. Item 10, approve ball field complex plans and specifications.
Brian and I met with Olson Associates last Friday. We feel that we've got everything worked out, that, and got what we requested from them, so that the plans and specs would be ready to go out for the bid process. Talked with Bob, and he made a comment that he would like to see it go out for bids to see what kind of results we have from the bidding process.
I think that's one thing, the base bid range is got $1 million spread. I'd like to see toward the bottom end of that, hopefully. We can get an idea with some bids.
Well, when the engineer's estimate is just an estimate, and it's not publicly, I mean, so.
Yeah.
Has any of the council seen the plans or specifications?
I have.
Mr. Rainey has, they're in my office if anybody wants to look at them.
when you look at this, Doug, right here, like that second page on here, that's exactly what we're looking at. This is a view, if you were walking in from the north, the service entrance, that's what that would look like. So the prints really are, you know, they're kind of generic. I mean, what you're seeing here is, and on that first page, is exactly what it's going to look like.
I do have a question on that. I've had a couple of people ask me about parking. Obviously, these type of ball fields are gonna bring in a lot of people. And the only thing I can think of is a school parking lot.
Absolutely. We've already got that agreed to use that.
Okay, is there gonna be, I mean, is that gonna be enough for everybody?
Well, they go out front, they can, I mean, they do the same thing at the Y when they're, have you ever been up to Y when they have flag football for the kids and stuff? You park wherever you can.
Is there gonna be any conflict between the two? Are we gonna have to make sure they don't have events at the same time if we're not adding any parking with this complex?
We don't have any place to put it.
There's no place to put it.
Um,
Plus that would raise the cost
Yeah,
a
that,
fair amount too.
I mean, we're saving approximately $400,000 not having to put a parking lot in. And that was agreed to with the school before we started. And people, when you go to these complexes now, you don't drive up to the fence like we're all accustomed to over the years. Everybody walks, and there's really only one main entrance that's gonna come in off the parking lot.
Well, obviously, you can't park on 18th Street, but, you know, there might be some additional parking over at the medical clinic or the ESU building, and then the old helicopter pad. I guess there might be some spots in there too.
At times, it's gonna get full, and they're gonna be walking a ways. I mean, the fields are taking up every little bit of dirt we have there. I mean, it took them a long time to figure out how to get this worked in on the dirt we had.
I can give you an example on as far as walking. I've got grandkids that play at Waverly, and they've got a complex similar to this. And then all their they've got soccer fields too, with the 4 ball fields, but you have to walk on a sidewalk through all the soccer fields first before you get to the complex. So you're walking probably about 4 blocks from where you're able to park to get to the ball fields, so it's something you just kind of learn to, that's the way it is.
Mike, you can see on here where that's gonna come from the parking lot up there and go around that area up there, and that's gonna be your main entrance. I mean, you're only gonna have one entrance.
And it's kind of like with our ball fields that we've got now, people find a place to park.
Yeah,
They do.
I think we'll have actually better parking here than what we've got now with the existing fields that we've got.
be a good problem to have.
Yeah.
This is the Cadillac version. But when I go buy Cadillac or Chevrolet or whatever, how am I gonna finance this? How are we going to, we've had a bond agent here 2 weeks ago. So my question is how we're gonna.
That's another reason why I think it'd be good to get some bids to see where we are standing with what we need to come up with as far as bonding. We don't have to accept the bids if they are high and we can't afford to do it, I guess, but.
How many bases are we gonna have on each field?
3 and home plate.
For all ages?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's 4 distances dug for softball and 4 distances for baseball. It's all laid out so every age group can play on those fields. That's the way they're designed now. They're multi-purpose. And if you have tournaments and you want to use like 2 300-foot fields, you bring in a portable fence. That's what they do for tournaments. It's all been thought through. I mean, it's gonna take.
By who? The council needs to approve this.
Well, I have faith in the people that in Olson and Associates that there's been a lot of different people working with this. And Bob and I worked with them for a year and a half, and Cameron.
A lot of talks with Joe Patterson out of Hastings. He was what, chairman of the Nebraska Softball Association for a few years and involved with some fields that were designed. He was involved with the Hastings fields they designed. So I think there's been a lot of research. So
It's been a long time coming. I agree with you there.
It's been about 2.5 years now since we started talking about it. I think we want to see where we're at, Doug, with the bids. Because it has grown from where we started. And we've changed lighting. The lighting, we're now, isn't that right, Brian? We're looking at LED now.
Yeah, they recommended it. They said, don't purchase a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you won't be able to get the other lighting. LED's the way to go.
but just on the energy efficiency there again too.
Oh,
So.
yeah.
And it's come down price from when we started talking about this project.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it right, because it's gonna be here for a long time. And the community would like to see this happen. And that will open up some property that the school has, I think, probably for soccer fields, and it's kind of a domino effect.
That, I'd make a motion, we approve the specs and put them out for bid.
I'll second that.
Sisson.
Yes.
McDermott.
Yes.
Given.
Yes.
Burbine.
Yes.
Hines.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Aldridge.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. We will skip matter of litigation. We will go to open discussion. Dave?
No, thank you, I'm good.
Okay. Chief?
I got a police officer interviews yesterday. I talked to Bob for about an hour this morning, and we came up with a conditional offer for one of the applicants, and we'll be following up with that. The psychological test and the polygraph, and physical fitness, providing the physical test, the physical, provided they pass the first two, psychological and polygraph. The other individual was put on the list to hire, so too bad we can't keep that more than 6 months, but civil service laws or rules or ordinances are 6 months, so the individual will be kept on there for 6 months, and then if you would happen to have another opening, you'd have to open it up again after 6 months, which is,
So you did offer?
yes, an offer was made.
Good. Great.
Certified with law enforcement experience or no?
Needed.
Nothing. Jason?
Nothing.
Ben?
With all the excitement going on at the South Park, the memorial, Veterans Memorial over there, the renaming of it, it'd be nice if we had some memorial courts going up over there.
We don't have the money right now.
Nothing.
We're trying to work on the ball fields first, and then I have talked with a couple grant writers about writing grants for that, because the construction estimate was just short of $100,000. So it's still on our list to get done. We talked about it this morning, but it's still on the list. It just got stuck to the back burner for a bit.
Well, at least if we have problems at the pool, we got a backup pool over there.
Yeah.
There you go. You're always thinking.
You're talking about the old tennis court.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Mayor.
I'm good to go.
I heard you were, but Mike?
The only thing I got is, we heard Mr. Tellis in the public forum with Dwayne Strothercourt.
It's been pretty sad for a long time.
It is.
Yeah. Mary?
As a to follow up to what Mike said, maybe we need to consider, I know we've talked about it in the past, but maybe it's time to revisit the idea of a code enforcement officer. Just something to kick around.
We've talked about it.
One of the issues of that is the state is supposed to police trailer courts. So we have primarily stayed away from those because they have to have someone from the state come in every year. And perhaps I can see if that's been done.
If you come across that, would you get us each a copy, or at least, if,
Yeah,
even if you find out where those reports are filed, so we can see?
I'll see what we can do, because I'm sure the state has to come in
Okay.
and is supposed to be in charge. The other two pretty much stay up to snuff on that. They even will request our assistance in some areas. We don't usually get that from Dwayne's, but the east and west side, we will sometimes get a request to get assistance to make sure vehicles are removed and things like that.
So then it's just whatever that is on the street that's up to us then?
Yes, but I can look in and see what the state said.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought that credit reports come under the state authority, but I don't know if they've ever driven through that one or been by it, but it's pretty ugly.
Of course, we discussed previous years, but if the city does anything to move people out, then you're responsible for moving them, finding them a place to stay, possibly paying for some of their rent if you take some sort of action to close it down or move it out.
Is that what usually happens with condemned properties?
I don't know for other condemned properties, but I know when you start to, you're kind of responsible in relocating the people, and the cost goes up. I remember under the other former mayor, those issues were brought up.
We look into it anyway. Anything else, Mary?
No, thank you.
Rod, have you heard any more on an attorney from Lincoln or anything on these junk places?
We'll talk about that in litigation, of course.
Will do.
Brian?
Nothing.
Kim?
Nothing, sir.
If nothing else, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session
I'll make that motion to go into closed session.
for a matter of,
Litigation.
I thought you said, second. Porterbon seconds.
McDermott.
Yes.
Givens.
Yes.
Burbine.
Yes.
Hines.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Aldridge.
Yeah.
Simpson.
Yes.
Sisson.
Yes.
Thanks, Mike, for clarifying that. I thought that's what you said.
I'll get it out of my mouth. I had dentist work today and I was.
Ooh,